Welcome to the Better Never Ends podcast. We've made it our mission to share with you the expertise and wisdom of role models and leading experts in their field, teaching us about how we can be better, telling stories about their journey to better, inspiring you to discover yours. Today in the podcast we have special guest Dale Hayes. So Dale is different from our usual guest. Dale firstly is a winner. He's won 27 professional golf titles in his career. He's now a broadcaster, a golf broadcaster on the Golf Channel. But what brings him here is that he also has suffered with knee arthritis for many years. And following on from our recent episode on knee arthritis, which many of you will listen to with Cash Akhtar, we were contacted by Contura Orthopedics. And as you may remember from the conversation, I had some involvement with Contura a few years ago with a client of mine who did really, really well on the injection Arthrosamid. So today's talk is about someone who has had that very injection. So Dale had the injection relatively recently, and we're going to talk in some depth about that. And we felt it was a really lovely conversation to have because not many people will know about it. It's relatively new in the market. And it's a lovely option for people to be able to have if they are struggling with knee arthritis. I think both for clinicians to understand a bit more about it as an option, but also for patients just like Dale who might be suffering to know that there could be something else as an alternative to potentially total knee replacement. So I'll bring Dale into the conversation here. So Dale's sitting very patiently waiting. And Dale, just tell us a bit about yourself first. You know, what's your life been like, your career, and now your broadcasting career? Tell us a bit about that.
How long do we have?
As long as you want. Off you go.
You know, when you get to my age, it could take a long time to go through your life.
Yeah.
But I grew up in South Africa, and I came from a golfing family. Both my father, my brothers, all professional golfers. So golf is kind of in our blood, and I played on the European and the PGA Tour for 10 years, and I stopped at a very young age, and it mainly was due to the South African politics. You know, I kind of got tired of not being allowed into different countries and stuff like that because of, in those days, apartheid. And it was kind of strange because obviously I was very young, so I didn't know anything else but what I'd grown up with. And, it wasn't necessarily that I agreed with apartheid. I certainly didn't, and I don't. But, that was the country that I lived in, and that's where my whole family were and everything like that. So I was reluctant to leave and give up on that. Now, with the way we've performed in the rugby over the last 2 World Cups, I'm a very proud South African.
Indeed, rightly so. Yeah.
But and fortunately, I was able to stay in golf. So I've done a lot of different things in golf. I was involved in the start of a golf magazine in South Africa, which is still going, and I'm still kind of involved in. So I'm involved with a guy who builds golf courses. I obviously do the television commentating. I'm involved in ownership of 2 golf courses in South Africa. So I'm involved in a lot of different things, a lot of variety. And about probably 7 or 8 years ago, my knee started to give me trouble, and I started to feel some pain and everything like that. And that sort of thing is, and especially if you're around a lot of people all the time at a golf club, there are a lot of experts.
Yes.
Whoa, there are a lot of experts. Yeah. And I was told to give up drinking red wine, especially if it had sulfur in it. Now, I don't know how you even check for that. I know it's got on the back, it's got what's in the wine. But, by the time you get to drinking red wine, you can't read those small writing. So I was told that I had high uric acid. I was told all sorts of different things. And eventually, as it got worse, one evening at the golf club, my brother had a friend who does knees. He's a specialist. And I asked him, I said to him, if I do need to have my knees done, when is the time? And the advice he gave me at the time, and I'm going back sort of before COVID, he said to me, wait for as long as you can because you don't want to have it done twice, was kind of his thinking at the time. And I went through COVID and they got progressively worse and worse and worse. And it got to the point where, I was taking all sorts of medication to try and, deal with the pain. And then a great friend of mine, in fact, I was the best man at his wedding. He was the best man at my wedding. And he phoned me up and he said, my son-in-law has just got involved in a company that do these injections. And, I think it might be something that might help you. And they arranged for me to talk to the guy here over the telephone from South Africa. And I sent him all the x-rays and all that kind of stuff. And he said, yes, I think it could help you. And that's how it all came about.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about the 7 years of the pain that you had then. So what were the kind of things that you weren't able to do and the things that would cause you pain?
Well, it really affected, and I really lost interest in playing golf because, literally, walking was obviously agony to get around the golf course, number one. But number two, I couldn't move my legs when I tried to swing the golf club. Now, in golf, wherever the golf club goes, your weight needs to go. So as you swing the golf club back, your weight moves from your left foot to your right foot. And then as you start your downswing, your weight then has got to move from your right foot to your left foot. And obviously that puts a lot of strain on your knees, and your knees sort of move almost outside your left leg and twists at the same time. So, I couldn't do that. So, I was trying to play golf without moving my legs, which obviously is not very much fun. If you've ever played, good golf before, it's not much fun to play rubbish. Yeah. So, it pretty much meant that I pretty much stopped playing golf.
Well, I've not played good golf, but I've played slightly better than terrible golf. And even when I stopped playing and became terrible, I know what you mean. It's really not fun when you're not playing the way you think you can play. So I imagine that was your experience.
Well, they say golf is the best game in the world to be bad at.
Yes.
But that was my experience, and it's no fun. And, especially, when you're playing with people who expect you to play well or to play decently, and to go out there and play rubbish, they don't care whether your legs are sore or whatever. That they just come in after the round and weren't very impressed with the way that you played. So that's no fun.
You raised a really important and interesting concept around the technique of golf there, and it almost highlights the complexity of the knee joint. You were saying how when your weight shifts from right foot to left foot in the downswing and to follow through, that there's a shift from the kind of inside of your knee to the outside and then into a rotation. And actually, this is partly why the total knee replacement is more complex than the total hip replacement. The knee is very much considered a hinge joint. Everyone sees it as it just bends and straightens. But what you've just described there is exactly why it's hard to create a really good, robust knee replacement, because it has to be able to play inside and outside and a bit of rotation. Whereas the hip joint it can be created with a perfect sphere and a receptacle for that sphere. So that is one of the complexities around knee arthritis, actually, and that's why it's a little harder to treat than hips, because it's not quite as successful with the total knee. So one of your options, as you rightly said, was the surgeon said total knee replacement, something you want to consider in the future, but you don't want to rush into, which I think is a fairly smart thing to say. But also a difference in the way we talk about knee replacements is also starting to happen. Rather than saying you've got to be suffering real bad, it's like, can we get people to suffer less sooner when they're in the prime of their life? You're still enjoying your golf and enjoying your life, and I'm sure you've still got friends and family that want you to be active and you want to be active. So the conversation now really is about, can we just help people enjoy life more and suffer less? And it seems like that the injection has played that part for you. So tell us a bit about what it's been like since you had the Arthrosamid injection. Was it a year ago? Is that right?
Today,
wow.
It's actually quite amazing.
The anniversary today.
In fact, it might have been yesterday a year. It's either today or yesterday. So anyway, I got here and I made the decision I was going to try it. And, I was told it was very much a thing that, was brand new. So, there were no guarantees that it would work or anything like that. And that was explained to me very carefully. So I kind of, I wasn't under the illusion that this was going to be a miracle.
Healthy level of skepticism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, I wasn't skeptical. I was hopeful.
Hopeful. Lovely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm quite a positive person normally, and I was hopeful that this might be something that was going to help me. And, I came in and I walked out, I think 20 minutes later. It was over. It was done. They took out the arthritis fluid and
they drained it, didn't they?
Yeah, put the gel in and everything, and off I went. And almost straight away, my left knee was pain-free. I mean, from literally the next day. Now, the only thing that actually worried me was that the next day I was flying back to South Africa, so I was spending 10 or 11 hours on an aeroplane, with not very much leg room, especially being big. I'm not that comfortable anyway. Yeah. So I was a little bit worried about that. But the left knee was perfect straight away. The right knee took probably about 6 weeks before I started to feel the pain go away. And on purpose, I'd stopped taking. I was taking and I don't know if it's a South African thing that's called Cataflam. Yeah. I was taking that. I stopped taking that straight away when I had these done. And it took about 6 weeks for the right knee to come right. And since then, I don't know if there's any wood around. I've had almost no pain in either. The left knee I've never had pain in, but the right knee, if I climb a lot of stairs or I sit in the same position on an aeroplane for a long time without getting up and walking around. Yeah. If I get up and walk around, I'm fine. But if I, if I sleep for 4 or 5 hours on the aeroplane and then I get up, it'll feel stiff and everything like that. But really no pain. So there's no doubt in my mind it has worked 100% for me. Yeah. It really has. And I would have no qualms about saying to anybody they should try this. Obviously under a doctor. Yeah. Who's going to tell him whether this is going to work for him? Because I gather some people it's not.
Yeah, it's not 100%, but nothing really is. There aren't many guarantees in medicine, and what the data is showing that there's sort of a 75 to 80% response rate for people, a higher response for the right type of person as well, and it seems to be those that have a specific inflammatory style, synovitis style, so inflammation within the joint. That type of arthritis, that seems to respond particularly well. And it's a good opportunity for me to give some context as to what Arthrosamid is. And, I'm far from a pharmaceutical expert here, but I'll give kind of my understanding of what it is for the listeners. And it's a hydrogel, so it's predominantly water, nearly all water. And then the active substance, actually it's inert, so therefore it doesn't react with the body. The inert substance is a polyacrylamide. And that, once it's injected into the joint, it becomes part of the synovium, the joint itself. It kind of lines the joint and helps to create a sort of scaffold-like extra element of lining on the synovium, which the complexity of that essentially means that it stops or it slows down the inflammatory reaction. It stops the inflammation being quite so active. I mean, inflammation can be very painful, both in a compression, for compression reasons as well as chemical reasons. It can react with our nerves and make it really, really painful. So as a result, the inflammation reduces, and as you're describing, can be both instantly and also gradually really effective depending on how it acts on the person. So I'm really interested by this as a product. It's relatively new, so it came from the veterinary world. It started to be used on lame racehorses, and they found that it was very effective in helping horses that weren't able to race to then race again. So that's where the kind of theoretical reality came from, and they started thinking about it being used in humans. And I know for the last 10, 20 years they've been building up evidence, building up safety regulations, and it is now considered safe. It's now rolled out very broadly across the world. It's available in the private sector, and it is expensive. That's the other thing to mention here. It's an expensive option, but they do, I believe, hope that it will get NICE approval, so that's the kind of governing body to help the NHS decide whether it's safe. And once that happens, there's a potential that this might be available for for everyone who's suffering with knee arthritis. And we know it's a huge burden on worldwide disability and suffering. So a very positive thing for people to have another option. Previously we have exercise and activity modification, which does work, but the next level would be steroid injection, maybe hyaluronic acid injections, which have short to medium term effectiveness, but seems to drop away. But I know the studies in Arthrosamid are suggesting 3+ years of effectiveness for 75 to 80% of the people it's used with. So it's not a guarantee. As you said, it's worked for you, but you're even aware it wasn't a guarantee, and it isn't. But it is a conversation to be had because it's new. People don't necessarily know about it, and it's another potentially life-changing intervention for many people who are suffering, who don't want a big operation, but do want to live better. So look, that's my take on it, and why I thought it was a really interesting conversation to have. And you're the proof that you're now playing golf again. I bet you're feeling amazing, and the passion of your life is back.
Yeah, the last race you mentioned, the horse racing. The last race I was in, I was 10-1.
Yeah,
and I finished at 3:45. So that wasn't very successful. But I am playing golf again. I don't play a lot of golf, but I am playing, and I can move my legs a little bit. Unfortunately, with golf is a very complicated game, and as some people say, if they taught sex the way they teach golf, the human race would have died out years ago. And there are many ways to play golf. But one of the problems with golf is when you swing the golf club, if there's anything wrong with you, if your arm is hurting, your wrist is hurting, or your ankle or whatever, you protect it. So, you're scared to hurt it.
Yeah.
So, I'm still very, very wary of using my legs.
Yeah.
Because I think that, I might hurt them.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to kind of get back.
Yeah. Well, 7-8 years in pain, it takes a while for your subconscious and conscious part of your brain to trust your knees again. And actually, as a physio, that's often my role, is to help people to recover. And this is what I've been excited to work with the Contour group, is helping people after their injection. So we've helped to put together a post-injection rehabilitation program, a free rehabilitation program for everyone that has it, which gets people from injection back to more of their life. We know that the injection is amazing at relieving pain, but it doesn't solve all the problems. And you're actually describing exactly that. You're not fully confident yet. You haven't been able to build up the trust, maybe the strength in your knees in order to go out and do what you were doing before. And this is where our role, actually, we come in as physios and help people get that muscle strength, get that confidence, get that fitness back so they can do a bit more of what they love.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, part of your problem was pain and inflammation. Another part of your problem was muscle weakness. And as a result of the pain, it essentially disengages muscles, makes them stop working the way they were working. When they disengage, they get weaker and they shrink. So the next phase for you is to build that muscle back up again so that you can do even more than you could over the past few years. So some of those exercises will be very individual for you and tailored for you and what your needs are, but a lot of them are very functional standard exercises that will help you do things like get upstairs easier, move around in the world easier, sit to stand easier, walk around on golf courses easier for you. So there's a lot of value in physiotherapy after the injection, which is why I've been really enjoying the work with Contour, because they've recognized that need and that value. It's not just about relieving pain, it's about helping people live better lives after. So this is something that we could follow on with after this conversation, actually, and helping you make your next steps towards recovery, actually. Getting you playing a bit more golf. By the sounds of it, you're still feeling quite limited on the golf course. So, it'd be exciting to look into that for sure.
Very much so. That would be very cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, someone like yourself who's been involved in sports a long time, that there's still not necessarily the understanding of how to manage arthritis optimally. It's I want to get my pain gone, sure, but there's almost that, well, I'll just have to accept the disability that comes with it, and it's not always the truth. There is some more that could come with it. So that's great for me to even be able to share that with you today without us having prepped for that. We know that you've had some great care at the hospital you went to. I know you were at the King Edward, the 7th Hospital, not far from where we are here, actually, and they looked after you well. It was the Grosvenor group, I believe, that they looked after you as well. Mark Webb was he with the consultant, and then Rajat Chowdhury, the radiologist.
Yeah. Both absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Both, explained to me in a simple way what they were doing at all times, and very efficient. And as I said, it took 20 minutes. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be there for hours. I had thoughts that I might even have to stay overnight. And 20 minutes later, they said, okay, get up and go. Mm. And I was a little bit, reticent to actually stand up, because I didn't know if my legs would cave in, and I got up and off I went.
Yeah. It's a very different thing, and this is why surgery is a big thing, right? Because surgery is, you're not going to get up and walk out 20 minutes after surgery. This is why this is a very good option to have as a precursor to going through big surgery, because it can take many, many weeks and months to recover from surgery, and some people never quite get back to where they think they're going to be. There are some great success stories. There are also some people who don't get that much benefit. There are also, unfortunately, people who feel worse. So with this, the worst case scenario seems to be that it doesn't work. So you stay the same. So the best case scenario is that your pain is relieved quite significantly, entirely on your left side and very significantly on your right side. So that's the success story here. And what other treatments had you tried prior to this? What had you done before?
No, nothing.
Yeah.
And no, I hadn't done anything. Tell me, another question I've got is, can you have it a second time?
Yes. Yeah. So that there are some people whose effect wears off after a few years, and they essentially have another injection and it seems to work again. So because it's relatively new, there aren't many people who have had multiple injections, but I do know of cases where they've had a second and it's worked well. So even for people who, like you, have had two problems, one's worked incredibly well, the other less well, they might have a second injection on that other side, for example. That's my understanding.
Okay.
And when surgery was being presented as an option to you by a friend from South Africa, how did that feel to you? It sounds like you were quite reluctant.
Very reluctant. Because I knew I'd be out, kind of almost completely out of action for a while. And, it was going to take, quite a few weeks before you get back on your feet and start to, walk around normally and everything like that. So, that I was very reluctant, and I'm not that happy about spending time in hospital. So, that would, for me, was going to be the last resort. I don't want to go to hospital unless I really have to. Yeah. So that was going to be the last resort.
And what's next for you now? Because you're feeling a bit better, and as we've highlighted, you're still feeling like there's a bit more to do with your recovery, and you're not quite back to everything. But what's on the horizon? What are you now able to be more hopeful of going forwards?
Well, as I say, I'm starting to play golf again, and I'd like to hear about some exercises to strengthen the knees, because I still do, getting up is still a little bit of an issue for me, especially if I've been like at dinner, for example. If you're sitting there for a couple of hours and then you stand up, it's you get up and it's a little bit stiff. You walk three paces and you're fine. So I'd like that to go away. Maybe I'm being over optimistic now, but I'd like to try and see if I can make that go away. That would be really neat, and it'd be neat to be able to play decent golf again.
Yeah,
that would be fun. I know I'm never going to play anywhere near the way I did 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but just to be able to play decently, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've always encouraged people to aim high when it comes to their recovery, because if you aim high and you miss high, you've still achieved a lot more than you would had you not have aimed at all. So for people like yourself who you still got dreams and ambitions of being active and enjoying life, aim high and keep working. So we'll certainly share the exercises that we've created with Contura, and I'm sure they'll work very well for you, and we'll be in touch to help make those really independent and individual to you. Sorry. Look, I'm now interested actually in your golf. Okay, you said that you want to be able to play. good golf again. And tell us a bit about your golfing career then. I know you had a few big scalps from your career. You won a few big tournaments. So what does it take to be the top of your game in a sport like golf?
Wow. Nowadays, a lot of people come to me and people with kids and stuff like that, and they say, I think my kid's got a lot of talent and I think he could become a champion golfer. What does he need to do? And you need a lot of different things. And, not a lot of people have all those. The real greats like Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods and, people, Gary Player and Arnold Palmer and Lee Trevino, Tom Watson, they had pretty much all of them. And, so you think about things like, firstly, you've got to work hard. You've got to have determination. You've got to have natural talent. You've got to have imagination. You've got to have unbelievable desire to be a champion. You've got to want it badly, and you've got to keep wanting it, because the trouble with golf is you win a tournament this week, the next week you're starting over. Now you're just the same as the other 150 players. Okay, you've got to prove yourself again, and that happens every week of the year. So you've got to have unbelievable desire, and you look at somebody like Gary Player or Bernhard Langer at the moment. Bernhard Langer is in his middle 60s, and he still can't wait to go and play in another tournament and win. That's what he wants to do, and he's got great desire to do that. So desire is a huge thing. That's what I lost. I got to 30 years of age, and I had no desire. It wasn't a big deal for me anymore. I'd won tournaments, I'd kind of done the things that I'd set out to do, and I kind of lost the desire to keep doing the same thing. And whereas the great champions, they are able to keep that desire. But determination. You've got to be really determined. And I mentioned natural talent, and you can't underestimate that either. You've got to have a lot of talent for it. You can have all the other things and have no talent. You're never going to be a great champion. Yeah. So you've got to have all those things.
I find it interesting watching. I watch golf and very much enjoy it, and you do get these kind of, they win it once, they win a big tournament once, and then they disappear. It's like they've got everything they wanted, and then the desire has dropped off. Perhaps they're not able to sustain it, and then you get these other ones who just keep going. Tiger Woods obviously is the modern day version, and you're starting to get a few more that are coming through. I'm interested by people like Rory McIlroy, who's clearly got the talent, he's clearly got the desire, but there's something else that for him he's struggling to get over the line all of a sudden, isn't he? He hasn't won a major in 10 years. And
it's so interesting because he's got everything. I mean, in my opinion, he's the best golfer in the world, in my opinion. And yet at the moment, he just lacks something that's going to take him, over the edge. Because in the last 10 years, he's got so close so often. His record over the last 10 years in major championships has been phenomenal. Yeah. Okay, but he hasn't won. And, it's crazy.
Well, the recent one, I mean, he essentially threw it away in the last two holes, didn't he? So there's something psychological there, right? It must be super tough for a player with so much talent, so much desire, to be missing something in the crucial moments like that. And you saw him hadn't fully recovered. The Open, you were up at the Open, weren't you? He wasn't anywhere near it.
He wasn't anywhere close there. There's nothing I admire more than a guy who doesn't have a phenomenal game, okay, but is able to get the results. I mean, who's basically getting 120% out of what he has.
Who are your modern day examples of that? Who are your triers? Kind of the real give it a goers.
I think you've got a guy like Brooks Koepka who's got huge talent. Okay, so he's not. I would say a guy like Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth he doesn't grip the club very well. His swing doesn't look like it is a swing that repeats very well. Yeah. He's a bad driver of the ball. He drives it all over the place. He's a very bad short putter. He's the best long putter I've seen in a long time. But a bad short putter, you give him a 3 or 4 foot putt, he's not very good. And yet he grinds and tries so hard and gets the results.
Yeah, he's won many, hasn't he? He's won several majors. Yeah.
He's fantastic for what his game looks like and to what he achieves. So, Bernhard Langer. When Bernhard Langer came out on tour, it was in the 70s when I was still playing, and he had the putting yips. He really struggled out on the tour when he first started, and he got over that, and then started winning, and then got the yips again, and once again got over it, and started winning again. So, that is phenomenal. I mean, that is just his strength, mental strength is just absolutely phenomenal. And he just happens also to be one of the nicest men you'll ever meet in your whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such a lovely guy. But mentally, he is so strong. And you've got to admire that. You've got to admire guys that are able to do that. Then you have a Jack Nicklaus, who, as Lee Trevino said, he hunts, he fishes, he plays tennis, and he wins golf tournaments. He's a legend in his spare time. Who just, didn't seem to put as much into it as some of the other players. Although when it came to tournaments, he gave it his all. He had the ability to put everything into different compartments. And so when he played in a tournament, he was 100% at that tournament. When he left that tournament and he was building a golf course, then everything changed. He was 100% on the golf course he was building. Yeah. So, he had
compartmentalizes.
Yeah, amazing.
I think that what you're almost describing here is there's just so many ways in order to be truly excellent in what you do. And even your example, you lost the desire for winning golf tournaments, so you just went and learned a new skill, and you learned a new skill that stayed in the sport that you love in golf. And you've now been broadcasting for many decades and are excellent at it, and have created magazines and TV shows. You've just evolved your interest level, and I think that comes across when I speak to other guests as well. How those skill sets can evolve and change over time, and it's that passion for excellence, that passion to just keep doing what you love and keep doing what you do really well that shines through.
I'm going to turn this whole thing around and say that's exactly what you're doing. Yeah. Isn't it?
It is. I mean, I'm a physio turned podcaster turned business owner. Yeah, and it's yeah, and I think that's why I love talking to people that I go, okay, yeah, there's other people doing that stuff too. Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's fun to do different things. It really is. It's fun to learn different things. When we started a golf magazine, the two of us that essentially did it. We'd never done a golf magazine. We'd never done a magazine in our lives. I mean, I didn't, I left school early to play golf. And it wasn't because I was stupid. They just didn't want to put my father and I in the same classroom. So this guy and I started this magazine. And I mean, nobody gave us a hope. No sports magazine in South Africa had ever lasted more than 2 or 3 years. And, we started this magazine. And as I said, the magazine now is 35 years old. It's been going for 35 years. Wow. It's really done. It's done well, and we don't own it anymore, but it's done really well, and it continues to do well, even in bad times for magazines where people aren't reading magazines like they used to. But you learn as you go along, and if you really enjoy it, and you really are determined to make it work, you will make it work. But you've got to have that determination. You've got to, there's no easy way of being successful. And, you'll have failures along the way, no question about that. Things won't work out often. And that happens often to people who try a lot of different things. You'll have things that don't work. You've got to accept that. But you've got to be determined, and you've got to work hard. And things will work out in the end. I firmly believe that.
And that's the hope part. Being an optimist, I think, is hugely beneficial for most people to be optimistic about the future, no matter what comes at you. I almost feel like the failure part, that's something that's absolutely essential to success. You need to be prepared to fail in order to succeed. And I mean, how much is golf all about that, right? You have to fail thousands of times in golf in order to get it right in the end, because it's such a specific skill. You know, I've played golf, especially in my 20s. I played quite a lot, certainly in the summer months I was playing a fair bit. And I noticed that each summer I was a bit better. By the end of the summer I was thinking, okay, I'm getting this game. And then I had kids and stopped playing as much and hardly played at all. My skill set just dropped off a cliff, and I was just like you said, you know, when you're not playing much, you play rubbish, you don't enjoy it so much. And it's such a specific skill that needs repetition, that without that, you just lose the edge, lose the specificity. And what I'm starting to realize now is I'm getting that urge to go back and get that enjoyment of learning again. Because what I was noticing is I wasn't playing enough to enjoy the learning. I was just failing too much and not learning because I wasn't playing enough. So I think what it is like you need to be able to, for me anyway, I mean, many people may be different. The learning is the fun part.
Yeah.
Right. So with golf, when I'm failing a lot, provided I feel like there's some kind of learning that's coming along, or I'm just every now and again I'm playing a shot successfully that I wasn't playing successful before, that's fun for me. That's good. So whatever level you're at, you can feel like you're learning in that kind of sport. And I think the leveler of it is that the handicap process means that you can play against someone who's you know exceptional and still have an enjoyable competition. So it's both a leveler but also an individual skill that's super specific to how good you are.
Somebody many years ago, somebody said that golf is a game of the best bad shots. So everybody's going to hit good shots. It's who hits the best bad shots is going to be the ultimate winner. And you know, quite an interesting stat, and I might have the number slightly wrong, but at the height of John McEnroe's career, he won 92% of the matches he played. At the height of Jack Nicklaus's career, he lost 88% of the tournaments that he played. So, you know, golf teaches you to be a loser.
Yeah.
You know, it teaches you to lose. And, you know, that's especially good for young people, you know, for kids playing golf, because it does teach you how to become, you know, how to accept losses, you know, and how to behave properly. And I think it's very, very important for young people to learn that, because that's going to do you so much good throughout your life. And, you know, we're talking about golf now, but it's exactly the same in everything else. It's the same in business.
It is.
You know, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, look, and we started this conversation on being optimistic and being hopeful about your knees, and that's set you into a good mindset in order to recover well. And we've finished it talking about, you know, the broader realities of life and failure being a good thing and optimism. So look, this conversation is sort of rooted in some universal principles of success and learning and enjoyment in life. So thanks for offering that. And Dale, is there anything you wanted to add on, something we haven't spoken about regarding your knees, your recovery, or your golf that you think might be relevant to our conversation here today?
Well, I think, you know, just two things. Firstly, I'd have no trouble in recommending that people, you know, certainly look at this as an option.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's not for everybody, but for me, it's been hugely successful. It's made such a difference.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's made such a difference. I mean, you know, my wife doesn't have to listen to me, you know, groaning and moaning about how sore my knees all the time. So, you know, that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, is that now, you know, I would like to get the information on some exercise. I'm not a big exerciser. Yeah. Okay. The only time I go to gym is for breakfast. But I would like to get the information because, you know, I would obviously like to start being able to use my knees playing golf again.
Yeah. And look, just carrying on from what you said in your first point there, is that this is just another option for people to choose. And ultimately, healthcare is all about people making informed decisions and choosing what they think is best for them. And this is raising awareness of something that's new, and therefore many people have no awareness of, or very minimal awareness of. So it's purely about raising awareness of another option that's out there that seems to be effective for many people, and long-lasting effectiveness, which I think is the key here. So like, if it just prompts people to have a look on the website and see if it does work for them, or clinicians who are listening to just mention it for people to contact their doctors and have conversations, that's that's really what this is about, and you're one of the success stories, and it's great to have you in talking about your experience, and we'll absolutely follow up with some exercises. Don't worry, you don't need to be in the gym, you can do them at home. But you can get there for breakfast maybe. But thanks so much for coming in today, Dale. You've been a fantastic guest. My first golf pro, winner of massive tournaments, which it's great to talk, and I can tell that you've got an elite mindset, and it's great to hear it as well. So a few little tips for people out there, that whether they play golf or not, I think there's a lot of universal truths that they can take. So thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Better, provider of health and wellness services in central London. We really believe that we can help people feel better and live better. You can book in for face-to-face services at any of our 3 London clinics. We have one in Marylebone, one in Soho, and one in the city. You can also follow us on Instagram at Better Never Ends, or head over to our website for more information about the clinics or the podcast at www.betterneverends.com.